And greetings and blessings, blessed souls. We are alive because we are blessed to stay alive in Torah Chaim, the instructions of life. Torah Chesed, instructions of kindness. Torah Rachamim, instructions of mercies. This semi-impromptu presentation today is basically directed towards a Facebook group called Torah Meditation Club, which was basically a gathering of human beings who I asked to join, and some joined on their own, and increasingly more people have been joining, who want to talk about the human experience, the human endeavor of meditating. Now, there are various forms of meditating, and we've discussed that in very terse fashion during a radio presentation series called Meditation, Wellsprings for the Human Soul, which is a program that I am hosting on Blog Talk Radio. You can go to blogtalkradio.com, that's BLOGTALK radio.com, and just type in my name, Don, D-O-N, Zusya, Z-U-S-Y-A, Goodman, G-O-O-D-M-A-N, and there we are covering teachings from within the context of a certain sefer, as we call it, Hebrew work, emotional coach of Ner Mitzvah Torah Or. And there are two teachings here with a lot of elucidation, which were provided to us by the Mittler Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, the first Lubavitch Rebbe, because he was the Admor, the leader of the Chabad Hasidic movement, the son of the original founder of the Chabad Hasidic movement, Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi. His name was Rav Dov Ber Shniori, and he lived from 1773 to 1827. And he felt it was his obligation as a continuation, I should say, of what his father had established through his unique perspective on Hasidus Chabad, basically to not only enliven and inflame the heart with heartful prayers and doing acts of kindness and expressing acts of brotherly love with a great fiery emotional capacity, but also that should be cognitively driven, ultimately to the point where there should be emotion spawning out of the mind and tapping into the inner recesses of the intellect of the heart. Now, the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe Shneur Zalman of Liadi, started this process, and his son, Rebbe Dov Ber Shniori, continued with this process and finally congealed into this book. And the book basically starts off on the first page, called the Shara Blot, literally a gate, meaning before you enter a house, you usually see a door or a gate. And a gate usually can serve as two purposes. It can be served as a means of protection from those forces, or in this case, waves of consciousness, which is the opposite the Torah mandated fundamental point of meditation. It can actually help you clarify and help you redirect yourself into what direction you're going once you pass through that gate. So when you start to interact with these teaching blessed souls, there is that twofold benefit of the gate, of the sha'ar yuchud, the gate of unification. By unifying yourself with pristine, authentic Torah teachings, you are consequently being offered a means of continual protection against waves, or I should say negative waves of consciousness, which would promote otherwise concepts which strike against the idea of unification between every particle, every fiber of the creation, and the Creator, who is one but beyond numerical oneness, sense of all-inclusiveness. So the Mittler Rebbe started off with his Shara Blat, the opening page to the book, although not the opening of the text, that first of all, each person should be graced to know and to perceive concerning how that which is in the creation is unified within something which it emanates out of, is part and parcel of, and has been directed by divine will to be revealed to this universe, and much more so on this blessed creation, something which is known as Elokus. Now, this idea of unification has basically two general dimensions. There's an upper level of unification, and there's a lower level of unification. And we can basically boil it down to a brief, terse statement, which is mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses, the mighty Levite prophet, was commanded to instruct Israel and therefore provide a universal instruction for all the Bnei Noach, that we of Israel declare to ourselves and therefore to the world, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Why doesn't it say, Hear, nations of the world? Who knows? Perhaps the Mashiach, the Messiah, will introduce that concept. That's just conjecture on my part with no source from the Torah, and I don't want to promote something which doesn't exist in the Torah, but perhaps we shall see statements, although you can certainly learn out from certain verses in the Tanakh and certainly in Psalms, and there's certainly universal instructions in Proverbs by King Solomon, Psalms written by King David and 9 other prophets, testifying that all nations shall in fact praise the Creator and recognize unity. But since this portion of the Torah, in the 5th book of the Torah, of the Bible, in Deuteronomy, was something that Moshe was commanded to tell the nation of Israel before he would go on to the next level of life, it has stood as an axiomatic commandment, mitzvah, that the masters of the inner dimension of Torah found it so significant that they would expound upon that which has been revealed, that by just reciting this verse, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, from that we can extract out different levels of consciousness of upper level unity and lower level unity. Upper level unity relates to how everything is truly godliness. But we're in that upper level of unity in terms of our own mindset. We have to remember that there's also a lower level of unity, that there should be a dispersion of that unique oneness to the point where even those things which seem to have no connection to godliness, in fact, are being enlivened by that elokus and godliness. And at that point of level of consciousness, the lower level of unity, that which seems to be a tangible existence seems to be that which is, and that which is giving its life seems to be what is called as an ayin, sense of nothingness, a state of spiritual, godly self-abnegation for the purpose of bringing something tangible and something that we can taste, touch, and feel, and smell, and see, and hear about with our oral, tactile senses and talents and sensibilities. While it is in the upper level unity, the only thing that's truly tangible is godliness emanating from the one true Creator. Again, we say one, but not just like, for instance, you take a look at my finger sticking up. It's one finger, but it has 3 joints. Uno, dos, tres. You see the other 4 fingers, but it's one finger, but it's connected to a larger system, namely, Baruch Hashem, the rest of my hand and my forearm, my arm, my shoulder, and the rest of my body. This is where we can go with cognitive meditation. It's sort of in psychology. There's an exercise called being grounded, or grounding oneself. When one is, excuse me, when one is overwhelmed by certain thoughts and feelings, ideas, responsibilities, and one can start to feel manic or panicky, palpitations of the heart, if one makes that wise behavioral move to say sit in a chair or get to a calm spot, even take a walk into the forest, and just stop one's rush of thoughts and emotions and recollection of all one's responsibilities of that particular day or in the near distant future. One can just sit around and look at the environment. For instance, if I was experiencing some sense of panic, I could turn around and start to count every one of my books in back of me, just a small portion, Baruch Hashem, say every name of the book and who the author is. And if I've read some of that book, I can say, well, it talks about that. And by the time I finish with the exercise, say for 5 to 10, 15 minutes, and if I have the luxury of having a half hour, my mind is immersed in those ideas to the exclusion of that which is causing me anxiety. And the cognitive meditative approach can in fact be a proactive way, a holistic way of energizing and protecting oneself and creating a cognitive coding in order to buffer off those negative waves of consciousness that we talked about at the beginning. Now, the Mittler Rebbe goes on to say that each and every person, with his blessing to comprehend upper level unity and lower level unity, it's all according to the understanding of his or her heart. Itself might seem like a paradox or a contradiction. If we're talking about cognitive, meditative human experiences, what does that have to do with the understanding of the heart? But there we see, blessed us, when we go into the Panemius of Torah, the inner dimensions of Torah, we see, in fact, there is an intellect to the heart. And not only that intellect of the heart is a means of supercharging the mindfulness, the cognitive experience, the fusion and fission, cognitive oscillating consciousness experiences that are going from right brain to left brain to back brain, from back brain to left brain to right brain, from back brain to right brain to left brain, moving in all different types of patterns based on what's going on in our heart. And of course, according to what knowledge we've already gathered in and what knowledge we seek to comprehend. And the Rebbe wanted to say, and the prayer should help us in this process. See, listen, I read from 3 lines, and just extracting out from, it's about 20 years I've been learning this book on my own, learning it with other people, learning it from other people, teaching it to other people, reading books written by others in different parts of the internet or books that are published, hearing lectures on the internet. It becomes a whole component of one's lifestyle to engage in a cognitive experience. And it's quite intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually pleasurable to engage in this type of an endeavor. It's not pushing a button and expecting for one's cognitive spiritual potentialities to be fully cooked in 30 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes, according to whatever you've just thrown into your cognitive microwave oven. Just as some people who are in a rush just throw their food into the microwave oven to get that quick fix of food. One of the things that Hasidus is very, very profound at doing is explaining to human beings, to we of the nation of Israel, and for anyone of the children know, which is all the inhabitants of the world, Kol Bo'olam, halachically, from the Torah law perspective, anyone who is not a Jew is called a Ben Noach, and Rambam is very clear about that in the laws of Nadarim, the laws of vows. So for those who say there's no such thing as a Noahide, or a Ben Noah, I'm sorry, halachically, that's not true. The Rambam says anyone who is not of the nation of Israel is called a Ben Noah, B'nai Noah, and he wrote that within the context of his book of laws, known as the Mishnah Torah, the code of Jewish law, you might want to call it, the code of Israelite law, 12 tribes law, whatever you want to call it, God's law, which he derived out of Talmudic teachings, Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. Chassidus is so good at taking verses from Tanakh. In this case, I believe it is from Chronicles. Just forgive me if I made a mistake. It's really coming from Kings 1, where King David, before he passed on to the next level of life, told his young and tender son of either 12 or something, a little bit before the age of 12 years old, he mentioned in his instructions to his young son, who would eventually become the next king of Israel, that the Creator seeks out all hearts. So on the one hand, we have to try to become aware of the fact that we have an intellect within our heart, an understanding within the heart, and Creator is seeking us in a way of what are we doing with the blessings of our heart, our emotional capacities. And now we're just talking about this whole idea of the intellectual qualities, or the understanding. Understanding is considered to be a cognitive skill, a cognitive component to the human experience, whether it be the understanding of the heart or the understanding of the mind, located in the left brain processing. King David also mentioned to Solomon before he passed on, and if you will seek out Creator, you shall find Creator. And if not, we understand what that implies. Those wise enough, and someone, myself bearing just a little wisdom, if I'm told I can find Creator if I look for Him, but if I don't look for Him, I understand what the implication is. I don't want to take it to the negative implication, consequence, which is something also Chassidus is very good at, to stress the positive outcome and merely to hint to there could be a negative outcome if one doesn't take the proper approach. In this case, in cognitive meditative experiences. King David also wrote that within himself, because he was a human being, as an exemplary display of human consciousness, with all of my heart I sought you out, meaning Creator, I sought you out. And the Mittler Rebbe said that this seeking out, now this word for seeking out here in the Hebrew is called drisha. The doresh, lidrosh, means to seek out. Now what's interesting in the word of drisha, which is spelled, for those of you who know the Hebrew, daled, resh, yud, shin, and hey, there happen to be two letters in the Lashon HaKodesh, the Hebrew, which are part of the Creator's name. Is an ineffable four-letter name. The Yud followed by the Hey, followed by the Vav and the Hey. In particular, the Yud and then the Hey. So a person who's engaged in this drisha is actually seeking out the hidden awareness, which can be extracted out from Creator's the first two letters of Creator's name. The Yud relating to Creator is the source of all wisdom, and the Hey, Creator is the source of all understanding. So King David says, I seek you out with all of my heart, or I sought you out with all of my heart, because the Mittler Rebbe explains from the inner dimensions of Chassidus, of Pnimis Torah, the inner dimension of Torah, we are seeking to access how Creator is the source of all wisdom, how Creator is the source of all understanding, and the source of all wisdom, and the source of all understanding, with the Almighty's blessings, which has transpired for the last 3,000 plus years, has manifested into the eternal teachings of the Torah. They always existed in the Torah, because the Torah is an eternal entity, which existed before creation, according to our old Torah tradition. Divine instruction existed, Creator in His wisdom, in Creator's wisdom. at the appropriate time, manifested creation, manifested original man and woman, manifested from them descendants, manifested all the events that we learn about in the Torah, in the written tradition, in the oral tradition, and of course, whatever the nations of the world have recorded accurately in their history books, so we have an understanding of how we got here and where we are. But the benefit of the teachings of the Tanakh, which are all written from a prophetic perspective, is that which was written 3,000 plus years ago have a contemporary existential application right now, and also are allowing us to cross the bridge into the eternal implementation of these teachings. And part of the implementation of teachings that we are going to experience more and more if we make ourselves proper vessels, with of course the blessings of the Most High, is to access these teachings of Hasidus and implement our human experience of cognitive meditation, which the Rambam writes in the Foundations of the Torah, chapter 2, verse 2, if you want to come and love Creator, you have to engage in his bonus, inner understanding, meditation. In the language of the Gemara, iyun, analytical Torah study. Now, as well as Hasidus extracting out from a verse of the Tanakh, as we just did with King David saying, with all of my heart I sought you, and we talked about Drisha Zu, as the Mittler Rebbe wrote at the end of this Shara Blad. This is the seeking out of how Creator is the source of wisdom and understanding. Hasidus also, and the Kabbalah, we have to mention as well, Kabbalah and Hasidus, so to speak, the twin towers of supra-rational, prophetic, divine inspirational teachings, which those who have merited have revealed to us these teachings throughout the ages, can also pinpoint from where shall you seek out within your own physical body, which has a corresponding spiritual body, even within yourself, and in the greater makif, in the greater encompassing element of yourself. So this seeking out, the Mittler Rebbe concludes here, transpires within the eye of the intellect, within the heart. Now we talked about the understanding of the heart. Now we're talking about even a more particularized dimension of cognitive activity which exists in the human heart. It's called the eye of the intellect within the heart. And intellect is, so to speak, the forest of cognitive activity. Understanding, or binah, is one of the trees of the forest of cognitive activity. The other two trees, so to speak, in the forest of cognitive activity is the tree of wisdom and the tree of knowledge, and there's the tree of understanding. I'm speaking allegorically, of course. So, in the eye of the intellect, within the heart, Mittler Rebbe succinctly concludes it's something which is very close within you, and yet paradoxically, existentially, and historically, very, very deep. But because Hasidus will address these matters in such a fashion, it is the empowerment for us now to do the research. So, while unfortunately there has not been a complete translation of the Shara Yichud, which will be touching upon all these concepts, and we've tried to so far in our humble efforts to make 34 presentations concerning human cognitive meditative activity. You can also Google up. For instance, I would suggest today, if you want to do a little homework before either we do our next radio class or we continue with this type of, I don't know, simplification, a cup of coffee presentation of Hasidus. Because ultimately, it's not just about you listening to, say, someone like myself and people much more profound and much more learned than me, Chaim, just talk it out, but you look into the books, or you go to a class, pay attention to what the teacher is saying, and take notes. And you don't feel to take notes, let those things which you would normally write down notes for, let them register in your mind, and ask the question at a point where it would be, socially appropriate as the teacher, in order that you can get a better understanding of what we're talking about here. That's what I do. I've been doing for 20 plus years, in particular, and 30 plus years in my endeavors to live a Torah lifestyle. So I would suggest to you to look up concepts such as grace, chen, the idea of yuchud, or yuchud elokus, the unification of godliness, yuchud elah, the upper level unity, yuchud tatorah, the lower level unity. How does that relate to the Shema? The idea of understanding of the heart. Why does, or not why, but how that Creator seeks out our hearts. Oh, one thing I mentioned, I forgot to mention, I'm just looking over the Shar Blood. King Solomon wrote, after getting the instructions from his father, that Hashem, Creator, seeks all hearts, and if you seek Creator, you'll find him, and if not, that Hashem is found within all hearts. So, from a perspective of where do we stand in relation to Creator in terms of this subject matter, Creator's looking to see if we are seeking him out. On the other hand, too, he's residing where? Within our hearts, to make the process a little bit easier. Just as magnet filings will be much more attracted to the epicenter of any space when you put a powerful magnet in that space. So it's a matter of basically, as we, with our consciousness, if we consider our consciousness within our mind and in our heart as being allegorical metal filings, and there's a, so to speak, spiritual magnet of godliness emanating from the Creator in the epicenter of our heart, physically and spiritually. So we should gravitate towards that magnet. And once we are clinging to that spiritual magnet of the unification of godliness in our inner heart, drawing down the cognitively charged emotional awareness of the fact that we want to get connected to the epicenter of our physical and spiritual hearts, and Creator sees that we're seeking him, we will access that eye of the intellect within our heart and not be confused or baffled or even doubtful of the idea that this eye of the intellect within the heart is up close but yet so deep. It won't be a contradiction. It will be a benchmark for us to now be motivated to do more research into the matter. And so we can pray to access the material to make this all a matter of cognitive awareness, fused with the simple faith that this is actually a series of teachings which we've been sharing and which you can read in the Hebrew. I suggest you go right into the Shar Yichud yourself by the Mitzvah Rebbe. And of course, I would also suggest you learn it with the teachings of Hillel Parich, who was a master in himself as a chassid, not as an admor, not as a rebbe. And you'll see again, none of this will seem to baffle you, but to challenge you to open the envelope to see what else can you learn about your experience as a human being on this blessed creation concerning awareness of the unity, the oneness, beyond numerical oneness of Creator relating to us. And this hopefully will supercharge us in a way to conduct ourselves in a way of a Ahava Chad, one love, Gorla Chad, one destiny, all of us, a darchi noam, in a pleasant way, darchi shalom, in a peaceful way, hamshich, as Hashem Yisrael, to continue with the help of the Most High. And I want to conclude succinctly to remind you all, you've got to be good. I've got to be good. We've all got to be good. Why? Because at Teva Tov Lehetiv, it is the nature of the good to do good. And since the Creator was the source of this Teva Tov Lehetiv, since he decided that you and I should be on this earth, we are empowered to do goodness and stay away from matters which are the opposite of that very goodness which Creator is seeking for us to reveal and add to, even on the most microcosmic, mundane fashion, whether it be at your work, whether it be with your family relations, whether you're starting up a new relationship with someone, even if you're breaking up with a certain type of relationship which is healthier for the other person, yourself, and yourself and the other person. It's mutually agreed upon. It becomes a nicer world, a kinder world, the type of world that if we can exemplify it with the Almighty's blessings, a lot more human beings will have hope, and motivation to make this world a wonderful conduit for the revelation of Mashiach Tzidkenu, our righteous Messiah, who will roar out, Torah Chadasha, a new Torah shall come from me, meaning the Creator will reveal to his chief student, the Messiah, the Mashiach, the Lion of Judah, King of Israel, the tribe of Judah, Shevet Yehudah, teachings which will, again, bring us back together. The whole human family experience as magnet filings shall be drawn to that supercharged, super spiritual magnet of divine energy, which will lead us to cross the bridge into the eternal road. Sounds good. It is good. Whether you believe it or not, that's a choice you'll have to make. I've signed up for the program. I hope you have as well. Take care, everyone.